Okay, this will be part 2 of the series, The Garden of Eden in Galilee. Sodom and Gomorrah. We think of Sodom and Gomorrah and we think of the salt. We think of the pillar of salt that Lot's wife turned into, and for this reason we associate the salt with the Dead Sea, which is obviously full of salt. However, if you go to Genesis chapter 13, it says that Lot moved to Sodom and Gomorrah. Before it was destroyed, it was like the Garden of Eden, well watered. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear these words, I imagine a river flowing to water the Garden of Eden, not a sea. Okay? So we can conclude that Sodom and Gomorrah before, if it was indeed in the Salt Sea, in the Dead Sea, before Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, it was simply the Jordan River, and it was stationed close by the river like the Garden of Eden, well watered like the Garden of Eden. Now, there's another verse in Genesis chapter 14, which says, we're talking about the war between the 5 kings and the 4 kings, and they made war in the valley of Sodom, which is the Salt Sea. That's what it says in Genesis 14. The valley of Sodom is the Salt Sea, and that's where they made war. However, did they make war on boats? Did they bring their ships and make war inside the sea? Or was Genesis 13 right when it said it used to be a river, like the Garden of Eden, and then it became a lake? Let's explore this a little bit. The Dead Sea is the lowest point in the Jordan Valley, in fact the lowest point on earth, above seawater, that is. And there is no geographical possibility for the Jordan River to flow down there without creating a sea. You see, rivers have to drain somewhere, and they normally drain into seas. So, let's say before Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, it was a river. Where does the river drain to? And if you take out a map and you look at the Jordan Valley, you will see that it was always a sea. It might not have been salty before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, but it was certainly always a sea, because that is the drain of the Jordan Valley. That's where all the rivers from the Galilee, from the Shomron areas, from the land of Jordan flow into that region, and that's why we see a sea there today. So, according to Genesis 13 and 14, Sodom and Gomorrah was not in the Dead Sea. So what other options do we have here? I mean, really, we have the Sea of Galilee, we have the Dead Sea, and we have the Hula Lake in the far northern Galilee. We've only got 3 seas to choose from. And we know that the Sea of Kinneret was one of these seas. So let's play a little game. Let's say the Hula Lake is the Sea of Kinneret, and the Sea of Galilee today was actually the site of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? Can we argue that the Sea of Galilee could have been like the Garden of Eden, with a river flowing through it? Yes. Why? Because it's higher than the Dead Sea. So the river could simply flow all the way down to the Dead Sea. We have no geographical issues here. Now, with this knowledge, take a little while to just digest what I said. Take a little moment. If Sodom and Gomorrah is in the Sea of Galilee, and the Sea of Galilee is technically called the Salt Sea, I want you to turn your attention to Joshua chapter 15, which describes Judah's borders. Okay? Joshua chapter 15. And his east border was the Salt Sea, and the southern border went south of Kadesh into the river Egypt, and it ended in the Big Sea, the Great Sea, which is often called the Mediterranean Sea, which was the western border of Judah. Let's examine the northern border of Judah. The northern border of Judah hits two springs north of the Sea of Galilee, because we already know the Sea of Galilee is the eastern border. It hits two springs, Ein Shemesh and Ein Regel. And from these two springs, it goes south of Jerusalem. Remember, Judah's northern border is north of the Sea of Galilee and goes south of Jerusalem. From here, it goes down and it hits Mount Seir, which is Edom, and then continues into the Western Sea. Do you realize what we've just done? We've just eliminated the possibility of Jerusalem being where it is today. Not only that, we've also eliminated the possibility of Jerusalem being anywhere south of the Sea of Galilee. Anywhere south of the Sea of Galilee is not a possibility for Jerusalem. It must be north of the Sea of Galilee. Now, you will see that in my findings, the old city of Tzfat becomes Jerusalem. And I'm not talking about King David's Jerusalem. No. I'm talking about Jerusalem in the time of Joshua. Because King David, what he did was, he took everybody back into Egypt. As you will read in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 17. He shall not have many wives, which he did. He shall not have a lot of gold, which he did. He shall not have many horses, which he did. And finally, he shall not bring Israel back into Egypt, which he did. The modern Jerusalem today is part of ancient Egypt. And I'm not talking about Egypt of the pyramids. No. I'm talking about the real Egypt, where we were slaves. Now, do you realize everywhere south of the city of Haifa is considered Egypt? And Bet Shan, which, according to my findings, is the city of Gerar next to Beersheba being Gan HaShlosha in the Galilee. So, let's just take a moment to digest these ideas for a second. When we left Egypt, we crossed the Red Sea. We've already explained that the Salt Sea is the Sea of Galilee. Very precisely and very clearly, without question. Which means that the Dead Sea today is the Red Sea. We crossed the Red Sea. We traveled 3 days' journey north to the Sea of Galilee. In Exodus chapter 15, it's called Marah, which literally means bitter waters. Just like salty waters would be described as bitter, so too the Sea of Galilee was called Marah. Now Moses threw a tree in the Sea of Galilee. And what happened? The waters became sweet and drinkable. This is the confusion we have today. This is why we can't see these things, because it's completely hidden from the eyes. And then he continued on his journey towards Mount Sinai, which I believe is in the Galilee. And we'll talk about that in part 3.